Silence. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning with Faith. This is one of your hosts, Sachi Ice Queen. In this episode, we have a very special guest. We have a couple, actually. And if you hear some laughing in the background, that's the modern day Noah, aka the Monarch, Definitely wanted to thank all of our sponsors and definitely wanted to thank, the special couple that's going to be here with us today. And so I want to start off with just a little bit of an update of what we have going on with the nonprofit. Right now, we added 2 new directors, and we are actually expanding. We're actually in Texas now, and we're also in Oklahoma. We have two new directors for the nonprofit, and so I'm very, very excited for that. So, welcome, Mama Bulldog. This is one of our guests, special guest today, and just wanted to again say thank you to all of our viewers, all of our community. We've been doing this since 2021, and just wanted to definitely appreciate you guys if you guys have also been a guest on our podcast, because this is our 3rd one. We actually have a 4th one that we already started as well. And so if you haven't been hearing this one, it's because we've been focusing on this feral activity podcast. And so the Learning with Faith one we did for a whole year, and it was a lot of fun. I'm very glad that I was able to just start this the feral activity podcast, because my husband, it was a little idea in his mind, and so he had been sitting on it for about 2 years. And so I was like, all right, well, we finally met the group of people, and this is the first time that it's like a big group of podcasters, not just us 2 or like 3 of us, because Learning Idiom is a virtual vocational academy. Our mission is to break language barriers and culture barriers by perfecting people's English and Spanish. And the way that we do that is we create our own content that we send out to our students and and so we create all of this content, and that's why we do both Spanish and English episodes. And on Transcending La Familia, we also get to do the Spanglish ones because we have bilingual guests in there. And so I personally like that one too, because that's how I was raised. So if I don't think of the thing immediately in English, then I know it in Spanish. And so it's definitely easier for me because I don't have to focus just on one language. But this one is always fun too, because I love talking about relationships. I love talking about marriage. I love talking about parenting. And so in this episode, like in this particular podcast, that's what we focus on. Last year, we really did also focus and invite people who were in the real estate world, just because we wanted to include just a little bit of business tips, and, just the business perspective through the relationships, like how the toll that it takes on a family when, you're a realtor or you're loan officer or something, And so if you haven't checked out our past episodes, definitely go check it out. We're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, a lot of different platforms, as you can see in the picture. And so definitely wanted to just mention my husband. He might not be able to make an appearance in the episode because he started a new endeavor. And so he is also currently getting over a really bad cough. So he didn't want to interject all of that and just kind of rest. And so if today is your day of rest, then, thank you for joining us on your day of rest. I originally, we were a Christian-based type of podcast, but again, we don't believe in religion. We believe in relationship. So without further ado, Definitely wanted to introduce this lovely couple. They've been married for 26 years, and so I'm sure they're going to have a lot of wisdom to embark on us, just because that's a long time to be married. And so definitely wanted to give one last shout out to the Arkansas dating group on Facebook, because that's the reason why we created this one. And that's the reason why we talk about relationships, is because we have, 19,000 members in our group. So if you're interested in our speed dating events that we do in person and virtually, definitely reach out to us. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about you guys, like how you guys met, just a little bit about your couple journey.
So Bulldog and I met on AOL before online dating was a thing, cool, talked about, whatever, however you want to say it, in an AOL chat room. And I was living in Florida and he was living in Georgia when we met. And it just kind of like went from there. It was like really one of those on the phone all night long, falling asleep on the phone, racking up long distance phone calls.
It was a lot of that. Actually, I was actually talking to another girl on AOL, and she interjected herself and said, "No, you're going to talk to me, not her." So and then we eventually met, and then we've been inseparable since then. I've been married to her longer than I had a single life.
Yeah,
Wow, that's crazy. Like that's pretty cool that like you know more of a married life than a single life. That's
Yes.
a big
yeah, we
accomplishment. So I definitely wanted to commend both of you. Congratulations.
and we both came from homes of broken marriages. His mom and biological dad split up and divorced when he was really young, and he's got a stepdad and a stepmom. And my mom and dad finally, I say finally because my mom put up with a lot of stuff with my dad, but they divorced when me and my sister were like 13 and 14, I think. We were still pretty young. So we didn't really have a home with a happy, healthy marriage to look at and be like, that's my goal.
Yeah.
I totally relate to that because like I personally I was raised by a single mom after the age of 11. My parents divorced when I was 11. And so like I would constantly, and that's probably why I still like doing this type of thing, is because I would still like to like look at, older couples that have been, they made it, they're still together, and like I like to like listen and just because I want to have a successful marriage. This is my second marriage, and next May, or this coming up May, it's going to be our 2-year anniversary. And so like we're technically, I would say we're still in the newlywed phase. We've known each other about 4 years. And so my previous marriage was 10 years, but I was only with him for 8. So like I've learned a lot from that experience, and I don't want to repeat the mistakes that I did in my previous marriage. And I think both me and Monarch feel the same way about that, because he was married for 5 years previously as well. So like I was married for a little bit longer, but we both experienced, and we both publicly say we divorced our abusers. It's really as simple as that. And if you want more information about that, definitely check out our past episodes, because we definitely are super open about what we've experienced. He's been in a domestic violence global conference, with Gigi Sabat, Dr. Gigi Sabat. We are nonprofit partners with Life Services of America based in Florida. We do a lot of conferences online with them. We've been doing that for about 2 years, and we're very grateful for that partnership. And so he got to speak and share his domestic violence story with his previous, wife and that situation. And so definitely wanted to thank Dr. Gigi Sabat for opening that space for people to not only share their story, but also, that's just me personally. I think the more that you share about your story, the more you kind of heal about it. Because that's just my I've just noticed, even me, whenever I wrote my divorce story, in the book, Transcending La Familia, which is the name of our podcast, we have 3 learning idiom, either interns or, previous directors. We did 3 bilingual stories in that book, Transcending La Familia. And it was very, oh, look, there's Cubby. He also has been, part of Learning with Faith. He was a guest. But definitely, I totally relate to what you just said, because I don't want to say that I was in a broken home, because my mom never remarried, but Monarch for sure is, because both of his parents remarried.
Well, my mom remarried. My dad never did. Despite all the issues that happened between the two of them, and who she remarried, and I love my bonus dad with everything in me. He stepped up to the plate when my dad chose other things over his family. But through everything, despite everything that happened between them, my dad still, the day my dad died 2 years ago, he still loved my mom with everything in him.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the first, I would say, 4 or 5 years of our marriage was spent, a lot of time, pretty much me being a stay-at-home mom, and him only being home, for a limited amount of time, because he started out over the road truck driving with my bonus dad, for a little while after we first got together and we had our first child. And then he did storm chasing with his stepdad, for many years afterwards. So we spent a lot of time, probably for the first 4 or 5 years of our marriage, apart. And then the next 5 was spent really trying to learn each other, and a lot of button heads and fights, and divorce word was thrown around a lot. We both did things in our marriage that should have never happened. I was unfaithful. He was not coming home and choosing to do things, that he knew I was completely against because of how I grew up. Year 10, we were definitely at we can't do this anymore, and we're not going to put the kids through this anymore, until God really got a hold of us and really smacked us both upside the head, and what are you doing? God came and snatched him right on up in the middle of our living room floor, one night after an argument, and after he was misusing the spice, the quote unquote legal stuff you can buy at the corner store. That was the first and only time he ever put his hands on me, and I looked at him in his face and I said, "You're hurting me, and if you don't let me go, I'm calling the cops." He stayed out in another room. I went to bed that night. I went to bed upset and angry. And I was right at that point of getting in that deep, heavy sleep. And I kept hearing my name being called. And I'm like, man, he knows where I'm at. If he wants me, he'll come back here. I'm not getting up. He knows I'm trying to go to sleep. And I heard it called again, and this time louder. And I'm like, man, if he wakes the kids up, they've got school tomorrow. I'm going to be PO'd. And so I go out there, and he's laying in the middle of the living room floor trying to pull over a 100-gallon fish tank over on himself to end it all. And I'm going to let him pick up that story because, he had that experience and only he can tell it from here the way that it was truly felt.
Yeah. On that note, I was pretty much doing every kind of drug I can get my hands on because I was done with life. That was after she was unfaithful for me, and I didn't know really what to do. Because yes, I did my things, but I never was unfaithful at any time. So that really hurt me, like beyond. Um, so I didn't care anymore. I was doing just any drug I can get my hands on. I was a functioning drug addict. I would make sure my family was took care of, and then I would go do my stuff. But that night, I just didn't want to be here no more. I said, it's done. And I had that 100-gallon fish tank, and I said, if I pull that on my head, I won't be here no more. When I went to grab it, something took my breath. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. And it kind of freaked me out. And I was like, well, what's going on? Well, I can't say it was a vision because I didn't see it, but I knew it. I knew a feeling that my family was standing there over my grave and didn't have nobody to take care of. So I gave.
We're sorry, this is an emotional part.
Oh yeah, no, it's very, it's kind of like you're kind of reliving it almost. And when those types of situations happen, like I know that it's it can get triggering a little bit because it's like, oh, you're remembering that deep pain. And I totally understand because whenever I was in college, um, I myself had, unaliving thoughts as well. And it was whenever my son got diagnosed with autism because I blamed myself so heavily because I didn't know if it was something that I did, like, and I didn't know if I caused it or what it, I blamed myself. I honestly did. You know how they say it's so easy for people to forgive other people that they love, but it's the hardest thing to forgive yourself for the actions that you've done. And
Yes.
so like I as a mother, I would blame myself because he's my responsibility. Even if he was in the womb being formed, that's still my responsibility. Like, did I eat something? Did I eat too much mercury? Like, so I blame myself so much. And at the end of the day, and that's why I wrote that book, Accepting His Asperger Tendencies, because not only did I accept his autism, but I accepted that God made him the way that he was supposed to be made, regardless of my choices. And so I was able to forgive myself and let that go and not question if I did this or if I did that different. Would he, not have to endure all of those therapies and everything like that he's had to? Which thankfully my son's of, very high functioning. He's only level 2. And so but I do, and for any, autism parents out there, you know, um, definitely reach out to us. We do have here in Arkansas, we do have a community and nonprofit that we partner with where they have weekly parenting, Zoom calls where they just, because it's different. It's different type of parenting. And you're talking like about a domestic violence situation in your marriage. The only excuse me, the only kind of domestic violence I endured was from my son because he kicked me. He would try to intimidate me with scissors. He raised his hand at me and tried to hit me in the public library one time. So these are things that not necessarily normal parents, but special needs parenting is a whole other ballgame.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
And so I can relate to what you say, and you know, even the unaliving thoughts, you know, in college, and it was mainly because I would blame myself so heavily.
Right. And
And
that's where my mind was at because I took responsibility for my whole family. So I was the only one that was working for, like she said, pretty much all the way up, and she worked little jobs here and there, but the whole marriage was all on me. So any decision that got made was on me to make. Whether we had to move, whether we had to do anything, it was a lot that I was carrying. It was a big burden, but I didn't have to carry it. But in that moment when I couldn't breathe, I was able to say, God, they're yours, they're not mine. Priscilla, Daniel, Kayla, that's their names. So I said it. Instantly, it was like God breathed His breath back into me. I could breathe. I was off the ground, floating.
He was literally running around the living room, and I'm like, and the first thing out of my mind was, are you serious? You told me you threw that crap out. You went back and smoked more of it. I'm having, I can't do it. I'm calling 911. And he was like, no, listen to me. We got to go to church. We got to go to church. He was literally climbing on the furniture, pushing the coffee table around. Like, we got to go to church. We got to go to church. We got to go to church. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, I let it go in one ear and out the other because he has said it multiple times for years prior. But this time he meant it. Sunday morning came. He woke everybody up. We all got dressed. We all got in the car and we started driving. Past a bunch of churches on the way to where we ended up at. This particular church, I'd say probably 8 or 10 years prior to, he was.
I was working at that church. It was brand new. It was built. It was a big church, and I was standing in the classroom doing a punch out list, looking up at the ceiling, seeing if it was leaking because we put the roof on it. And I was thinking to myself, man, this is a pretty cool classroom. When I was a kid, if we'd had a Bible study class like this, I probably would have enjoyed it more. And that thought was 10 years prior. Okay. Well, she asked me that morning where we was going, and I said, I'm going to Hibernia Baptist. And she says, why? I said, because I worked in that church and I just want to go there. But when I got there, I realized that it was a super church. Like there was a lot of people there. And I said, hey, let's go find a smaller church. So I went and hit a U-turn in the parking lot, and their parking lot attendant seen me and he said, hey, you new here? I said, yeah. He goes, here. He pulls up the cone and he puts me in a spot right in front of the front door. Okay, well, let's do it. So we pull up in there to get our kids in the Bible study. And they put us into an adult Bible study, and they said, I know you're not quite 40 yet, but we're going to put you in the 40s adult Bible study because we feel like that's where
40s married.
That's where we feel like that's where you need to go. And I'm like, okay, well, the whole time we was in there, I really can't tell you what the Bible study was about because all I could think about was I can't wait till service for the pastor to call at the end of it, hey, who wants to come give yourself back?
But that particular Bible study that we ended up going into was on marriage and God's expectations in your marriage.
Yes. And we ended up staying in
wow,
that.
that's like divine timing right there, honestly.
Well, yeah, this is only the beginning of the testimony, I promise you, because that class that we went into, we ended up staying with that class. We're still members of that class, but we in that church, and we was with that. We was there solid every Sunday, every Wednesday, everything for close to 10 years after that. But from that morning, we get down there, and the pastor calls it, hey, come down to the end. I grabbed Priscilla's hand and I drug her to the altar. And we meet the deacon of the church, and we go into the baptism rooms and we change, and we're all four in there crying their eyes out, telling what's going on. And this deacon of the church was also the commander of the military base in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
We're all in there crying like babies, and we get through that. I go home. My car gets repossessed. We ended up getting back in there. We get back into church. They even helped us get a car. We get going, and they said, all right, you're on the new path. You need to plug in. I'll say, okay, we can do something with the church. Y'all helped us. We can help you. Well,
So the same day that the car got repossessed, his mom and stepdad had come to get the kids for the summer like they had every summer previously. So I'm home alone. He's working throughout the day. Our Bible study pastor's wife reaches out and she says, hey, she says, what do you got going on this week? And I'm like, oh, not a thing, because I didn't have anything to do. The kids were gone. He was at work. Nothing there to do. And she's like, well, we could really use some extra hands during VBS this week. She said, I know the car situation. She said, your house is on my way. I'll pick you up and take you home every day. And I was like, okay, cool. All in. That was one of the best experiences in my whole entire life, because I didn't experience that as a child. And watching these children grow and learn, and we were talking about Daniel and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and in the lion's den, and the whole book of Daniel was our focus. And every night I'd talk to the kids and I'd tell them, about the Bible story we went over. They were memorizing the Bible verse for the week, the focus verse. I was doing the songs with them, Bible study every night before bed. That Friday night, I'm sitting in the sanctuary with the pastor, with the Bible study pastor's wife, waiting on her grandkids to, have their fun on the bounce houses before they get put away. And he comes in and sits down next to me and he says, so how was your week? I said, it was amazing. He says, well, the church has it has been laid on the church's heart to help you and bulldog out. So here's this gift from the church. And I got emotional. It's like, you guys didn't have to do that. It wasn't asked for. That's not why we're doing what we're doing. And he says, oh, we're fully aware of it. And I stuck the envelope in my Bible and I took it home. I handed it to Bulldog and we opened it up and it was a check for $250. That night, I talked to the kids and it was talking to them. And our daughter, she's the oldest one, was talking to him about, what had happened, how many kids, prayed to receive Jesus in their heart. And she goes, Mama, how do you do that? I want to do that. So that night, I prayed with her and helped lead her to Christ. And we go to church Sunday. And I go down and I'm watching all my VBS babies up on the stage singing all the songs they learn. And we go back upstairs and the children's pastor comes in. And he's talking about, hey, Awanas is about to kick off. We need as many adult leaders as we possibly can. I looked over at Bulldog and I'm like, we're doing this. And he was like, what? He was like, no freaking way. I don't want to put up with my own kids. I'm not going to put up with somebody else's kids. And I'm like, please just trust me on this one. Being in the children's ministry this past week has done something to me that I never thought was possible. It has blessed me in a way that I never, ever thought I could be blessed. And that was it.
And I went with her and I liked it, and we did it for
3 years.
We did it for 3 years, but we did it for a couple months, and I was sitting with the children's pastor at a men's conference, a steak dinner, and for some I can't tell you why, but something kept telling me, "Hey, tell the pastor you want to teach. Tell the pastor you want to teach." So I told him, "Hey, I want to teach. I think I'm ready to teach." Didn't know why. Just told him. Fast forward about a month later, and he shows up at my house. So we can tell that story here in a minute, but let me skip that for a little bit. But we went and he brought us into the church and he hired me to be a Bible study teacher and kids. He put me into a classroom. And had another teacher there, and I was in that classroom for one Sunday with her, and then she's like, "Okay, this is your class. Here you go." I never know nothing else, and I just took it over. And the funny thing about that classroom, remember when I told you 10 years prior I was standing in a classroom, said it was a pretty cool classroom? That was the classroom I taught in for 8 years.
Wow.
And I came in as a sub slash floater and just really helping out wherever we needed extra hands at the time in children's ministry. Well, when we were brought on, our children's ministry had grown to the point where we had to split classes. There were 2 kindergarten classes, 2 first grade classes, 2 second grade classes, and then they split off into boys and girls classes from 3rd to 6th grade. And so pastor's like, "Hey, we need a female teacher over here in 2nd grade B class. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "I'm on it." And then I eventually ended up being the sole teacher in that classroom, but I jumped into children's ministry head first. Awanas, VBS, Bible study, helping out with morning prayer huddle, sending out weekly prayer lists, coordinating Bible study leader get-togethers. It was very clear that was where God wanted me at, and that's where we stayed at.
And that's when our marriage started to be real. That prior 10 years before that, it wasn't, we was roommates. We wasn't married.
Everybody says, "Oh, it takes 2 to be married." It's 50-50, but that's where a lot of people get it wrong. It takes 3 to have a successful marriage. A husband and wife who love each other unconditionally and keep God focused as the center and the anchor of that marriage. And you cannot be, "Oh, she gives 50, you get." Marriage is 100-100. And that is because when your spouse, husband or wife, is sitting on 20%, you have to bring in the other 80%. And when your spouse is weak, you have to be the strong one. And you have to learn each other's love languages. That's another big thing. If you don't know how to do that, Google the 5 languages of love. Take that test. Learn yours and your spouse's love language. And love each other intentionally. Everybody wants to scream, "Oh, marriage is hard work. Marriage is hard work." No, it's not. Marriage is heart work. It is a work of the heart. And if you don't give every single thing you have, and it's all coming from one side, it's going to crumble because you're not standing on solid foundation.
And when you do stumble after you do that, and you got that foundation with God, the cool thing about that, when you stumble, it's like a bungee cord. You get pulled right back to the foundation. You learn each other. You become one. You're no longer 2 people. You're a couple, and it becomes one. And like she said, when I'm down, she's up. When she's down, I'm up. It's a everyday thing that you have to give. You can't take. You have to give.
You can, you
Yeah, 100%. Like literally, like right now, my husband, he can't co-host with me today, and I had to be, the understanding wife and be like, "You need your rest. You need to recover, you know. Um, and like you said, you pick up the slack whenever one or the other is not 100%.
It's funny you said that because during this time, I had been called to substitute in a classroom at an early morning children's Bible study when our adult Bible study was going on. And at this time, we had been um, displaced out of our home due to no fault of our own. We were staying in a hotel. We were not in a great place at that time. And he come down into the classroom where I'm sitting at, and I'm praying over this lesson, and I'm reading over this lesson, and I'm asking God to show me what it was he's wanting me to teach these girls. And he comes in and he told me I was selfish because I wasn't sitting in Bible study with him. And I looked at him dead in his face and said, you can turn around and walk back down that hallway through those doors and go to our Bible study class without me, or I can have security escort you off the hall, because when I woke up this morning, God told me this is where he wanted me at. And later on, he come and he apologized and he said, you're right. I'm sorry. I should have never done that. That was me being selfish.
100%. That's crazy that you're saying all this, because so many marriages, they don't really know when to be like, the way that I always say it, it's kind of like, whenever you're like, tag, you're it kind of thing. So I would say that to my ex-husband all the time whenever with our kid, because we would go to work, it's so chaotic, especially when they're like, toddlers,
Mm-hmm.
and so I remember always telling him, all right, tag, you're it, I gotta go to work, and so, but they don't understand that. And I've learned from my previous marriage to now is that you also have to honor your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
not just put it all on them and, be like, okay, bye, and I'm learning that because my husband now, he, he requires that. He's like, you don't appreciate me. And I'm like, I cook and I do all these things, and I'm in theory thinking that he's feeling appreciated, but I'm not. Like you talked about the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
Words of affirmation is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't, because he wasn't like noticing that I was showing my appreciation for him by cooking and doing all the things that he likes, and but because he wasn't receiving that, because I wasn't telling him I appreciate you.
Right.
That's my love language, is words of affirmation, and Bulldogs is acts of service. So to him, I'm telling him I love him when I make sure the house is clean, or the laundry gets done, or dinner's cooked and I bring him his plate, or I notice he's hurting and I just start rubbing his back for no reason. And mine is definitely, hey babe, the house looks good today. Thank you for taking care of that. Or hey babe, dinner's great. You, that goes back to, you have to be intentional on how you're loving your spouse.
Right, and and to add on to that, on top of the love languages, you have to keep intimacy in your marriage. Whether you can do it sexually or not, you still have to keep intimacy in your marriage. Men don't say this, but they need it.
Yes.
It's not. I'm not saying that you got to go have sex all the time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying being intimate with your partner.
Yeah. Let them see the vulnerability. Give them a kiss for no reason. Hold their hand. Put your hand on their leg while they're driving. Show them that, hey, I'm still here. I'm still in this. I still love you. I still want you. I still need you. And I'm guilty of that due to depression and medical reasons, and when he could have just turned around and said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not gonna sit back and do it no more, and walked away. He didn't. He chose to work it out and to help me work on those things.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because, like, in my previous marriage, when we would be in an argument, like, my go to was to leave. I would leave to cool down.
Right.
And Monarch doesn't let me do that. Like, he's like, and it's a trigger actually for him. And he had to explain this to me. He's like, I used to have a friend that we had a fight, and he took his keys and he left, and then he got in an accident and he passed.
That's right.
And I was like, wow. And that was the last time that whenever we would have an argument or a disagreement, that was the last time that I went for my keys, because I did that in my previous marriage. And so I didn't realize that that was a trigger for him.
Right. And
And so,
we've
yeah.
made it a rule to not go to bed angry, because we're not promised tomorrow. You literally live every day, second by second. And those seconds are a gift, and you have to use them wisely. If you go to bed and you're angry with one another, and I mean, it would be a blessing and a bad thing at the same time, but God forbid you don't wake up the next morning. The last thing you felt from your spouse was anger.
Yeah. I got a thing that I don't know if it works on anybody else, but no matter how mad Mama Bulldog is at me, I can count to three, and the time I get to three, she's smiling.
Oh, I would definitely want to point that out. Like, having joy in a marriage is definitely something that is unique, and it's a different type of joy now, because, like, in my previous marriage, like, he would make me laugh. Like, I experienced joy in my marriage. Like, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I didn't if I didn't get something out of it, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, a woman doesn't stay with the man that long if they're not relatively taken care of in some shape or form. So, the first 5 years, like, yeah, we experienced joy. We experienced a lot of things. It was, but now the kind of joy that I experience with my husband, I've never felt anything like it. And I always tell him it's because I truly believe that you're my true husband. I don't believe that that was supposed to be my husband, because I remember asking for my husband and praying for my husband, and I asked for three things the first time. And that my previous husband, he did have those three things. He had those three qualities. But I never went to confirmation I never went to God to confirm that that was him. And that was my mistake. I don't consider my previous marriage a mistake in the sense of I got my son out of it, and I thank God for that. But I do believe that the second time I went to God so many times to confirm that that was his, that, like, that was the person for me. And, like, we still talk about it. We're like, the first 2 weeks we had, what do they call that? Where your cheeks hurt from smiling and laughing too much. For the first 2 weeks of our relationship or our getting to know each other, like, literally my cheeks would hurt all the time, and he says the same thing. And so, it's a different type of a joy, because I found the person that God wanted me to be with.
God puts us through those storms on purpose, because He knows we can take them. As long as you're looking for Him and not looking for a way out that storm, you'll get through it. We are who we are from our scars. So in that sense, I would say that you had to go through that first marriage to be who you are now.
And to
Oh
know,
yeah, totally. I always tell him I would not appreciate you as much as I do now if I didn't have that previous experience.
that part. And another thing, I know you have been in our lives, and Bulldog and I pick on each other and say random stupid stuff to each other and play fight and all that. And that is part of having a healthy marriage. If you cannot just let go and be yourself with your spouse, you're doing something wrong, or something is wrong, and it's not, and it needs to get to the bottom of it. If you stay to where I'm doing it this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, your marriage is going to crumble. A lot of things, a lot of people take the verse, wives submit to your husbands from the Bible, and twist it into a gratification thing. And that's not what it means. It means step back and allow your husband to lead your family properly.
Yes, because the proper chain of command is God, husband, wife, then kids. A lot of people make a mistake, and I might get some heat from this, but you do not put your kids before your spouse.
No, because guess what? Who's going to be left in your house when your children are old enough to move out and start their own life? You're there with your spouse.
I'm glad that you said that, because in my previous marriage, I would always struggle with my ex-husband because he would prioritize other people before prioritizing me and his son, specifically his family, like his mom and his siblings. And that was the one of, if not the main reason, but one of the main reasons why we divorced. Because
Listen, if we did that, if we prioritized our families, our extended families over ourselves in our marriage, we would have never made it past the first month of being together.
yeah,
And we chose together, especially while the children were little, that we put them first throughout the day, make sure their needs are met, and then once they go to bed, they're in bed. We do what we need to do to take care of us. And then once they got a certain age, that became, less and less. Hey, you know what you're supposed to be doing, go do it. And it was more about us. We still, to this day, and we still have one at home. He'll be 18 next month, but we still have one at home. We still, to this day, if we're both off, we'll look at each other and be like, let's go. And we'll sneak off and have breakfast dates or brunch dates or lunch dates or dinner dates. We'll go off for the weekend and just be the two. You cannot stop dating your spouse.
No. When you get in that, putting the kids over, well, the kids got to do this, and they got to do this, they got to do this, that you're pushing your spouse away. No matter how much they love you, no matter how much they love the kids, you're going to keep pushing them away.
yeah, 100%. Because like, that's funny that you said you're gonna get a lot of heat for that, because it is it. I think in here, and especially in the United States, like, because the traditional roles have kind of been changing over the years, and women are entered the workforce. It's been a little bit of a juggling act when it comes to children, and the parents get so like overly worried or whatever, whatever you want to call it, about their child's future, which I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm just saying the prioritization of your household depends on the marriage, not
Right.
on the relationship between the parent and the child.
Right, because it's the child's responsibility once they get on their own to make it on their own. It's only the parent's responsibility to teach them right and wrong until their age to be able to old enough to go and do their own thing. It's no longer on the parents once they go out their house.
100%, 100%. Because I was like literally, and that we would argue so much, me and my ex-husband, because he would prioritize his mom, his sister, his brother, And I would be, because he felt like I didn't need him, or my son didn't need him, because we were already like well taken care of. Like, and I know I'm a good mom. Like, he knew that he didn't have to worry about our son. And so, but that's still negated, that it doesn't negate that a child needs his father present.
Yes.
When you get married, you make a decision to take care of your family right then and there. Your extended family, your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters are still your family. They'll always be your family. You always need to love them, respect them. But now your focus cannot be on them. It has to be on your marriage.
On the family that you created.
Yeah, and I would try to tell him that, and he just never, I don't know if he never cared or if he just didn't agree. And it was just a constant pull about, at the last, 3 years. The first 5 years, it wasn't that bad, honestly. And I think it was because his family was still in a different country. They weren't in the same state as us. And so, like, when they came to move over here, that's when a lot, like, the dynamic changed completely in our home. And so it was a struggle, and I would try and try, and at the end of the day, I would see that I was putting in way more effort than he was, and I was like, this isn't fair to me. And it didn't take until literally my son told me that he wanted another dad. Like, and I was like, whoa, like, I was very surprised, because my son's extremely nonverbal. Like, I'm lucky if I get, 60 to 100 words out of him in a day.
Right.
And so for a child to tell his mom, I want another dad, like, those aren't, joking words. And so, because he felt the absence of his father, even though his father was physically there, he wasn't emotionally there for him. He wasn't there, like, he was just there. He wasn't really leading him. He was just taking care of him. And there's a completely different, you don't, like, you can take care of kids, or you can teach your kids.
That's right.
And so that's one thing that I would always, and I think Monarch, because he does teach my son, he teaches him a lot of things, and he has conversations with him. Like, they actually have a good relationship.
And you're also teaching your kids with your marriage.
Oh yeah.
You're teaching them how to be when they go out and get married. So if they see one parent that's invested and one parent that's not invested, they're going to be like that too.
Oh yeah, because like and it got so bad, and it's still unfortunate, but he does not call his dad his dad. He calls him his biological father.
Yep.
And I can't tell him what to call his dad. I just tell him, listen, Kevin, at the end of the day, you always have to respect and love your father. Even if he does things that you don't agree with, that is your father. That's always going to be your father. But I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't call him. Now, if you're like insulting him and things, then that's a little too far. But he refers to his dad as his biological father, not his, and he refers to John or Monarch as his stepdad. Like, he's earned dad.
Right.
That's awesome.
And that's the way I feel about my stepdad too. He my dad chose his drugs and alcohol over us, and my stepdad stepped in, and he and literally stepped up. If it wasn't for him, I don't know that I would have graduated high school. I have a lot of respect and love for my stepdad. And don't get me wrong, because my dad was my best friend for, I'd say, the last 10, 12 years. There wasn't a day that went by that we didn't in some way talk to each other, whether it was a text message, phone call, whatever. And my dad, he showed up when I became an adult, when I needed him the most. When I went into labor with my son, my dad took 3 buses and walked damn near a mile and still made it to the hospital before my mom ever thought about leaving the house to go. And we lived with her at the time. And my dad didn't leave my side. And the whole time I was in that hospital, he was there as soon as visiting hours started and did not leave my side. And it hurt like hell when I got the phone call that he was gone. But I know when the good Lord calls my bonus dad home, that one's going to sting really bad too, just because of everything that he has stepped up and did. And
yeah, I mean, I think grief is definitely something that we've talked about before in the podcast, but you know,
to
especially
see the
grief
way
with,
that he loves my mom, and even though they have a biological child together now, I don't, when I introduce him, I don't refer to him as my stepdad or bonus dad. That's my dad.
yeah.
And my brother is not my half brother. He's my brother. We don't use those terms because, you know, that, but he stepped up and he's like, this is how you and your sister and your mom should have been loved and taken care of. And then he took my husband and he's like, let's go, bro. It's time for you to learn too, because you said you wanted her and now she's yours and that's your responsibility.
Yeah, he told me no take backs. I couldn't
No
return.
returns.
That's funny. No, but it's true. You know, I definitely want to thank you guys for coming on. And I definitely want to share this whole episode on Instagram. And so that's why I'm kind of like, you know, we're cutting it to the hour, and Instagram only allows, you know, less than an hour. And so
Right.
thank you so much for your time, guys. Any last, you know, words of encouragement? We do have at least, you know, 2 minutes or so. So definitely feel free.
The best
to take
advice
up.
I can give anybody for marriage is just take it day by day. And even when you're at your last wit's end, like you think you can't take it, I promise you can. You just got to work at it.
And my thing is keep God first. Know that it's 100. And it's heart work, not hard work. And you have to put it in or it's not going to work.
Right. You cannot.
Oh, I like that.
You can't put your marriage on autopilot.
Nope, it won't last.
Well, if anybody knows about a lasting marriage, you guys definitely do. It sounds like you guys have been through a lot, and you know, of course, it's 26 years of, you know, that's a long time to go through the ups and downs of, you know, the wonderful thing of being married. But you know, again, I just definitely want to, you know, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom. You know, you know, I love doing these episodes, honestly, just because I learn a little bit. You know, I get to, you know, share the wisdom of my good friends, you know, around with the world. You know, we're on multiple platforms, and I'm glad that we have the audience that we do, that always is, you know, viewing and reaching out to us. And so thank you for your time. Definitely wanted to mention this coming up Friday, we do have that poetry competition. If you're interested in being in next year's, or even a poetry book, that is the book of the year, since our partner is Authors Are Us. And so if you're interested, definitely reach out to me. Thank you so much for being part of this episode. Take care, everyone. God bless, and peace be with you.
All right.
Thank you for having us. Bye.